All right, so the first thing that we're going to be covering today is what we're looking at on your display screens for your OneTalk devices. Now, some users may not have this exact model. Some users might have a T53, T57, or they might have the T54. All those devices are going to share the same features, the same functionalities, and all the buttons are going to be in the same spots as well. So there's really no difference there. The only real difference is a colored screen versus a black and white screen, depending on your model device. So starting with what we're looking here on this display screen, we're going to go over these bottom four buttons and then move to the left and right hand side of the screen. Starting with history, this is pretty self-explanatory. It just shows you a call log. Spans back about 6 months. To the right side of that, we have the directory option. This is going to allow you to save contacts in your directory, though you might notice that there's already a pre-made groups inside of your directory. You might have a local group or a remote group, but you can always create your own groups. If you would like, you just hit the directory option, create a group. That's going to be one of the options there. And then once you're in that group, that's when you can create the contact. Keep that in mind. You have to make a group first or put a contact in a group in order to have that saved. To the right of that, we have the D&D option. This just stands for Do Not Disturb. Anytime you want to send all of your calls to voicemail, go ahead and click this D&D button on and off. It's just an on and off switch. And you'll see it right at the top. It'll say D&D enabled or D&D disabled. So again, if you have D&D enabled, all calls will go straight to your voicemail box. Those go for transferred calls. If somebody transfers a call to your phone, it's going to go to your voicemail. It'll skip the ringing. And if somebody calls your extension or your phone directly, that's also just going to go straight to your voicemail box if you have this enabled. Now, there's one very important thing to note here about this D&D button. If you are part of a call group numbers are typically like department numbers or main line numbers that would ring a group of phones at the same time. So let's say we're part of, for example, the TP54W call group, and somebody calls that number, it rings 5 phones. If one of those 5 phones has D&D enabled and somebody calls that number, it'll still go to that phone. I'm sorry, if we had a question there? Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if we had a question there. But yeah, so just going back to that D&D button. So if you are part of a call group, for example, a department, and somebody calls a department number, instead of calling you directly or transferring a call to you, all the users in that department or all the users in that call group will still get the call, even if they have D&D enabled. So just one thing to keep in mind with D&D, this works for call transfers, and this works for people directly dialing your extension. But if somebody calls a call group number and you're in that group, you're still going to get that call regardless of the D&D option. All right, so just one thing to note. Moving on to the menu options. The menu options are going to have a lot more finer configurations for your phones. So if we have, let's say, Bluetooth settings, maybe you have a Bluetooth headset or headpiece that you want to connect to the phone, you're going to find that in your menu. If you want to connect your phone to a new network, like Wi-Fi or just a different network in general, that's going to be found in your menu as well. So again, a lot more of those finer settings. If you want to reboot or factory reset the phone, that's also in here if you ever needed to play around with those options. All right, so those are going to be your bottom 4 options here when your phone is on idle, essentially when you're not on an active call. We're going to go on to the on-call features when you have somebody on the line. These bottom 4 buttons are actually going to change, but we'll go over those in just a bit. So going over to the left and right-hand side of this idle screen, we have this icon of a phone here, and it says first name on the left. On your phones, this should show up as your extension number. So each user should have their extension appearing 3 times on all 3 of these slots here. So if your extension is 100, you should see 100 on each 3 of these slots here. These are really just using your extension numbers to represent your open lines. So if you were to get a call on line 1 here, you're going to see your first extension. It's going to start blinking green to let you know you're getting a call on line 1. You're going to see the caller's information right in the middle of the screen. So it'll all be displayed there for you. And of course, you can answer the call by taking the phone off the stand or just clicking on the button here while it's blinking green. That's going to allow you to take that call. Now, let's say you have somebody on the line here, on line 1, and you get another call coming in while you're on the phone. That second call is going to come through your second extension or your second line, your line 2 here. This will start blinking green. And in the same situation as before, you can click on this button while it's blinking green, and it will actually automatically put line 1 on hold for you to allow you to speak to line 2. And that's it. That also goes for line 3 as well. So all of these here are really just going to stand for your open lines. It's using your extension number to represent your open lines, and you can kind of switch between these at any point in time if you want to make new calls or take another incoming call on another line. Now, one thing to note about these lines, each user or each desk phone is going to have their own individualized lines assigned to them. So what that means is you can have somebody here on line 1, and you can be talking to someone. Someone else to the right of you could have a completely different person on their line 1. So all the lines are individualized per phone. Each user can have up to 3 people on the phone with them at the same time. Somebody else can have a completely different set of 3 people, on the phone with them at the same time. So instead of saying something like, hey, I have so-and-so on line 1 or line 2, it's really like saying I have so-and-so on my line 1 or my line 2. And again, we're going to go into the on-call features, like how to transfer calls to others in just a bit. Just understand for now that these are your open lines, and these will be individualized per phone. Right, so moving on to the right-hand side of the screen, we're seeing these blank spaces. On your phones, these are going to appear as blank options only because they can be configured as a few different features, a few different functionalities. The first 2 are done manually on the phone themselves. The last feature is something that can only be set up in the back end, so I'll double back around to that. So going over to those to the first 2 features, these buttons here can be assigned as either speed dials or intercom keys. If you want these assigned as either of those 2 options, you're actually just going to hold down the button associated to that slot, and it's going to bring up a menu for you to fill out. The first thing it's going to ask you on that menu is to just choose a type. Type just stands for speed dial or intercom. You're really just choosing how you want that button to work. And you're just going to use the left and right arrow keys to switch between the 2 options. It should only have speed dial and intercom as the 2 options for you. So as soon as you've chosen which one you want that assigned as, you just click the down arrow key to fill out the rest of the menu, where it's really just going to ask you to put in a label, which stands for name. Just type in the name in your keypad. And then a value, which stands for phone number. So go ahead and put in that 10-digit phone number or extension number of the person that you want saved as a speed dial. So again, if you want to set any of these buttons up here as speed dials or intercoms, just hold down that button there, fill out the menu. It'll ask you to choose between speed dial and intercom, and then fill out some contact information for that user. If you have them saved as a speed dial, it'll of course call that phone. If you have them saved as an intercom key, it will actually allow you to speak through the speakerphone of their one-talk device. So if you are saving any of these keys as intercoms, make sure that you're putting in an extension number in the value section. That way it's another one-talk device. If you try to save like a cell phone number or a third, just a number that's outside of this one-talk system as an intercom key, and you click the button, it's really just going to call that phone. It's not going to let you speak through the speakerphone. So just make sure when you're saving intercoms, you're putting in a one-talk extension or existing extension to allow that button to function properly. And then lastly, you're going to see these buttons down here, this 1, 2, 3. These are just going to be your pages. So you click the button associated, it'll take you to page 2, where you're going to see even more empty slots for speed dials and intercoms on both sides of the page. Same thing with page 3 there. All right, so the last thing I want to mention here on this idle screen before going on to the on-call features, it's actually going to be this features button that we see here on the left. This is actually really just going to have one specific functionality that's utilized the most. There's a lot of different settings here in the features setting, but mainly there's just one here that we're going to cover. It's the one that's utilized mostly by users here. It's going to be your call forwarding setting. So if you ever need to forward your calls to any other phone number, does not have to be a one-talk number, doesn't have to be another desk phone. If you want to forward your calls to your cell phone, another associate, maybe a third-party answering service, anywhere, that can be done here in the call forwarding section. To do that, you're going to click Features. You're going to click Call Forwarding. And once you click Call Forwarding, it's actually going to branch off into a couple of different options. It'll say Call Forwarding Always, Call Forwarding Busy, Call Forwarding No Answer. It'll just have a bunch of different options there. The one that we're looking for here is Call Forwarding Always. Call Forwarding Always is just an on and off switch, and you just type in the number you want to forward your calls to into the field that pops up. So again, if you ever need to forward your calls anywhere else, to an associate, cell phone, third-party answering service, any number in general, click Features, Call Forwarding Always, and then go ahead and type in the number you want to forward your calls to. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, this will have the same rules as the D&D button. So if you do have the call forwarding, enabled on your phone and you're part of a call group and somebody calls the call group number, you're still going to get that call. That will not go over to whoever you tried to forward the call to. That's because someone didn't call you directly by your extension or transferred a call to you, but instead called the call group number. Right, so I do hear that we have a little bit of audio in the background. I'm going to mute some users just to save the integrity of the audio here. Give me just one moment here.
Who owns that property is trying to put in an ice cream shop.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so sorry about that, everybody. Just want to save the audio recording here. All right, so that is going to be your call forwarding setting that will be found in your features section right here in this bottom left corner of your screen. So going on to these on-call features, everything we just covered was when your phone's on idle, when it's kind of just sitting there, you don't have anybody on the call, you can mess around with any of those settings there. If you have somebody on the line, you're going to notice that these bottom 4 buttons are going to change. Instead of showing history, directory, D&D, and menu, this is going to show up as a hold button. This will show up as a transfer option. This is going to show up as an end call button. Very self-explanatory there. And then this last option here is going to show up as a more button. And if you click on that, it'll kind of just take you to like a page 2 with a couple more options. And I'll double back around to those. And I know this picture is static here, so I don't have those actual names kind of showing up at the bottom. But the simulator that is going to be sent out after this training here will have all of this information sectioned off and with pictures. So as you can see here, it will have your model phones. You can see, accessing all these different areas here. And once you click on these functions, they'll come with pictures on how those screens will look once you click on them. So just something to keep in mind there as we go through this training. All right, so again, these bottom 4 buttons will change. Going over that first button here, this will show up as a hold button. Very self-explanatory. You click this, it'll place your current caller on hold. I will mention the system likes to do this for you automatically, depending on what you're utilizing. So for example, you have somebody on the line here, on line 1, and let's say you get a call on line 2 and you answer it. As soon as you click that button here, line 2, it's automatically going to place line 1 on hold for you. So you don't have to click hold first every time. It will do this for you depending on what you're doing. All right, so moving on to this second button here. This is going to show up as a transfer option. So there's actually going to be 3 different types of transfers that you can initiate on these phones here. We're going to cover the first one. We're going to cover all 3 of them, but the first one here is going to be your direct transfer, your very basic transfer, just taking the call and sending it over to any other phone number, be it an associate, cell phone, or just 10-digit number. To do that, let's say that you have somebody here on line 1 and you want to transfer them to extension 100. First thing you're going to want to do is click the transfer button. As soon as you click transfer, it's going to place the call on hold. So again, you don't have to click hold first and then transfer. You can just hit transfer, it'll do that for you. So you hit transfer, the call is on hold. Go ahead and type in the number that you want to transfer the call to. So in this case, 100. And then the last step here is clicking the transfer button again. Once you click the transfer button one last time there, it's essentially going to complete the transfer. It'll take that call that was left on hold, and it'll send it to extension 100 or whichever number you typed into your keypad. So again, you want to do that direct transfer. You're just going to hit transfer. The call will be placed on hold automatically. Type the number you want to transfer them to, and then hit the transfer button one last time. Again, the second time around, it'll say direct, but it will be the same button. So just click that button again. It'll send the call right off. And let's say that you are extension 100. Let's say that you are receiving a transferred call. You're going to see that right in the middle of your screen. It's going to show the caller's number. And then it's going to say via John or via Joe, via Mary, via front desk. It'll let you know exactly who sent the call over to you, so you know it's not a cold call or somebody calling into the main line or into the department, so on and so forth. All right, so that will be your direct transfer. Now, we do have the second type of transfer here, which is called a consultative transfer. This is going to allow you to actually speak to the recipient before you transfer the call to them. That way you can let them know, hey, I have so-and-so on my line right now. They're looking for you. Can I send the call over to your device? In order to do that, we're going to have the same first few steps. So you have somebody on the line here. We want to do a consult transfer with extension 100. Go ahead and click that transfer button. It'll place the caller on hold. Dial in the number, in this case 100. So same first few steps here. But the only difference here is instead of clicking the transfer button again, or the direct button, there's going to be another button that pops up just to the right of it. It's going to say consult. As soon as you click that consult button here, that's going to leave line 1 on hold, or whichever line you are on. It's going to leave them on hold, and you're going to be placed onto line 2, calling extension 100. It's going to do that for you automatically. As soon as they've picked up, as soon as extension 100 is picked up, that's when you can let them know, hey, so-and-so's on the line, can I send them over to your device? If they say yes, they can take the call, all you have to do is click that transfer button again, or the direct button. It'll be the last button on the screen there. It'll still be in the same spot. So anytime you need, if they say yes, just click send, direct, or transfer here, and that will take the call and send them right over to that extension. If they say no, they can't take the call, all you have to do is click right back onto line 1, where they were left on hold, and continue the conversation from there. Maybe they can leave a message. So again, same first few steps for that consultative transfer. You're just going to hit transfer, dial the extension, and then hit consult. As soon as you've done that, the call will be left on hold, and you will be placed on an open line, calling whoever you typed in. And if they say that they can take the call, just hit direct. It'll still be on the screen for you. And if they can't, just click right back onto whichever line that user was left on hold. Right, so that'll be your consultative transfer. Now, going into the last kind of transfer, this is going to be transferring somebody directly into a voicemail box. So maybe you know that they're not in the office for the day, maybe they're out for lunch or just not available for now, and somebody just wants to leave them a message. To do that, it's not going to have a specific button. It's actually going to have the same steps as a direct transfer. You're actually just going to need to know a star code, and that code is going to be **55. Again, the star code to send someone direct to voicemail is **55, and you're going to want to type that in before you type in the user's extension number. And that's what's going to tell the system to skip the ringing on that extension and go straight to their voicemail. So in this case, let's say we want to do this with extension 100, send a call to the voicemail of extension 100. Click transfer, call will be placed on hold, and then you're going to type in **55 followed by 100. Once you have all that in, click direct, just like a regular transfer, and it'll take the call, send it right into the voicemail of that extension. All right, so all you got to know is that **55. That's going to send somebody direct to voicemail. Keep in mind this will only work with extension numbers. You will not be able to put in **55 with a cell phone number or a number that's outside of the OneTalk system. It has to be a OneTalk number or an extension in order for that to work correctly. So just something to keep in mind with that code there. All right, so those are going to be your 3 different types of transfers. And again, all of that can be found here on the simulator as well. You can also use the search bar here to go through all the different types of transfers, and it'll take you over to those exact options. Performing a direct transfer to voicemail, you can see here it'll have all the steps. It'll give you that code, press **55, and it'll walk you through all the options here. All right, so moving on to a couple of these last on-call buttons here. So this third button is going to show up as an end call option. This is just going to hang up the phone, so definitely nothing too new there. And to the right of that, we're going to have a more button. Once you click this more button, we're going to see 3 more options populate these buttons here while you're on an active call. This one's going to show up as a park button. This is going to show up as a group park button. And this last option is going to show up as a conference option. So I'm actually going to start with this conference button, and then we're going to end it off on the group park and park buttons. And then the last section we're going to cover is just a few miscellaneous features in regards to the phones here. So this conference button, let's say that we want to, set up a conference call. This is really just going to allow you to merge people onto an active conversation or an active call. So let's say you have somebody here on line 1 and you want to get an extra person onto the conversation. First thing you're going to want to do is click onto line 2 or your line 3. Essentially, you want to get onto any other open line so that you can reach out to the person that you want to bring onto the call. So you have somebody on line 1, click on line 2, and then reach out to that user. You could either click their speed dial, go through the contacts, dial their extension, but essentially as soon as they've answered, as soon as they've picked up the phone, go ahead and click more and then click conference. What that's going to do is take that first person who was left on hold earlier and it's going to merge them onto your active call. And you're really just going to rinse and repeat that process with anybody else you want to add onto your call. Now you have two people on the call with yourself. You want to add a fourth person to that call. Go ahead and click back onto your line 1. These two users are going to be left on hold. Reach out to the fourth person you want to add to the call. And as soon as they've picked up, click More, click Conference. It'll take those two users here. It'll merge them right back onto your line 1 with the newest person you reached out to. And again, you just rinse and repeat. So that's going to be that conference button. There's two things to note here in regards to this option. First, there is a 6-person limit to how many people can be on a conference call at once. All right, so 6 people total, that is including yourself. As soon as you have reached that 6-person cap, as if you try to click on line 2 or line 3 or any of your other open lines, it's just going to give you a busy signal. It's going to say you can't make any more calls. So keep that in mind. 6 people total on a conference call at once, including yourself. The second thing to note, if you are the host of a conference call, if you are the person who actually clicked More and clicked Conference, brought everybody else in yourself, if you hang up, you are hanging up for anyone else you brought onto that call. That is because you're considered the bridge connecting everybody else's lines together. So if you hang up the phone, it's disconnecting that bridge and everyone else will drop off as well. Only if you're the host. If you were brought into a conference call, you can drop off at any point in time. It won't affect anyone else. But if you're the person who actually clicked that conference button, whoever it is you conferenced in will drop out as soon as you hang up the phone. All right, so that right there is going to be that conference option. And then the last two features here are going to be the park and group park buttons. These are going to be your last two on-call features. Now, these are very, very specific options here. They have a very niche functionality. We have users who either never touch this button at all or these buttons at all, or their call flow completely relies on it. So what I'm going to do is give you a summary of how this works and how this is utilized. And if you guys do want more information, or if this is something you see yourselves utilizing a lot, you can let me know. I can give you a much more in-depth description on how these work. But again, this is also going to be on that simulator as well if you do need more info on it. So starting with that park feature, just to give a brief summary here, this park button is going to work just like the transfers, except when you transfer a call, it takes a call, it rings whichever device you transferred it to, and if they don't answer within about 4 to 5 rings, it goes to their voicemail. If you park a call at somebody's device, instead of it ringing that phone, it's actually going to be placed on hold on any one of its open lines. And instead of it going to the voicemail box of that phone, if it's left on hold there, after 45 seconds, if it's just been sitting there on hold on that phone, it's going to bounce back to the first person who sent the call out in the first place. It's going to look like you're getting a call back from the same person you just parked at another device. Well, that's going to be that park button. Works like a transfer. You just hit park, dial an extension, and then hit park again. But instead of it ringing the extension, it's going to be placed on hold on any one of its open lines. And then after a certain amount of time, 45 seconds at default, it will bounce back to the original phone that sent it off in the first place, only if they've been sitting there on hold with zero interaction. Right? And that kind of goes hand in hand with this group park button. Again, just a brief summary. This group park here can only be set up in the back end of the system. So this is not something that can be utilized on the phone itself, or at least set up on the phone. If this is something you would want turned on, it would be a matter of letting us know. This will allow you to set up a list of users. Let's say that list composed of front desk, back office, and Joe. And whenever you click the group park button, it'll park the call on the first person's name on that list. In this case, front desk. If they don't answer within a certain amount of time, it'll go to the back office. If they don't answer, it'll go to Joe. And if they don't answer, so on and so forth. That's going to be that group park button. Again, lots of different features and functionalities here when it comes down to this, but that is going to be the gist of how those two options work. All right, so going on to some miscellaneous settings that we can have on here for your phones. This is going to be here on the bottom right corner and some hard keys here. And then just some general tips or things to note about your devices in general. Starting here, this is going to be your headset button. If you do have a Bluetooth headset that you want to connect to your phones, make sure that Bluetooth is set to enabled in the menu settings. Should be under menu and then basic settings. Just click onto Bluetooth and make sure it's on. It's just an on and off switch. And then click this button while you're turning on your Bluetooth headset. Should allow it to pair automatically. There is a list of compatible headsets that work with these phones. I'm going to send that in the follow-up email after this training. To the right of that, we have the mute button. Click this to mute your microphone. Click again to unmute. Right under that, we have a hold button. and then we have a transfer option. So these two, some model phones may not have this on the actual phone itself. They're just going to do the same thing as they would on the screen. The hold button and the transfer option when you actually have somebody on the phone. So nothing new there. Here we have the redial option. This is going to be like a call history. It's going to show you a very, very short call log. The only difference is it's only going to span back the last hour. The history button spans back the last 6 months. The redial button spans back the last hour. That's just so you can get on the phone with someone who you may have just got off the phone with, or maybe you wanted to save a recent contact. We have the speaker mode option here, and then we have the volume button on the left here. And then we have this voicemail option. Wanted to double back to this here. So the voicemail option, there's a few things to note here. Each of the phones will have its own voicemail box. So if you want to set up the voicemail box on your phone, make sure you have a greeting in there and a code set up. You're actually going to want to click on this button for the very first time, and it's going to walk you through all the steps of creating your voicemail box. So definitely something to do whenever you get a chance. This can be done before the phones go live, after the phones go live. As soon as your phone is essentially plugged in with power and internet, you can set up that voicemail. So whenever you get a chance, click this button for the first time. It'll walk you through all the steps of recording your own greeting straight through the phone and creating a 4-digit passcode to access your voicemails in the future. The next thing to note here as well, if you ever need to check on your voicemails remotely, there is going to be a way to do that by calling into your phone directly. Each desk phone will have its own 10-digit number assigned to it. Granted, anytime anyone makes an outbound call, it will always show up as their department line. So for example, if somebody in COA makes a call out, then their outbound caller ID will show up as the COA department number. So somebody's not calling you back directly, but they're calling back into the COA department. But regardless, each phone has its own 10-digit number assigned to it. If you want to know what your 10-digit number is, simply take the phone off of its resting stand here. So take the headpiece or the earpiece off its resting stand, and you should see your 10-digit number appear on the top left corner of the phone or in the middle of the screen of your device. It's going to be your 10-digit number. If you call that number, it calls your phone directly. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this, if you want to go ahead and access your voicemails remotely, maybe you're not near your desk phone, you want to listen to your voicemails, go ahead and call directly into that number, into your desk phone number, and let it ring out to voicemail. Allow it to ring all the way until you start hearing your voicemail message. Once you hear it, click pound. It'll skip the recording altogether and ask you to type in your 4-digit passcode, the one you created when you made the voicemail box. Once you put that in, you have full access to all of your voicemails. You can save them, delete them, listen to them, send them to other phones, so on and so forth. So again, if you ever need to check on your voicemails remotely, you're not near your desk phone, just call directly into your desk phone number, let it ring to voicemail, and as soon as you hear your recording, click pound, type in your passcode, and you'll have full access to your voicemails from whatever phone you called in from. Alternatively, we have a voicemail to email functionality as well. So if anybody wants to have voicemail to email enabled, all voicemails sent straight to your email, just let us know. We can turn on the on switch for that on your extension. All right, so the very last thing I want to note here in regards to your devices, it's actually just going to be this X key that we're seeing on the left-hand side here. We've already covered the idle features, the on-call features, and some miscellaneous notes. So this is really just going to be the last message I want to leave you guys off on in regards to the phones. So these phones are what are called VoIP-based devices. That stands for Voice over IP. In other words, they completely rely on internet in order to function, in order to make calls, take calls, so on and so forth. So if the internet goes down, the phones go down as well. It's very important to keep that in mind. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is there's a bunch of different ways to kind of go around it. Of course, there's failover routers. There's apps. Apps don't need Wi-Fi to connect. They can use LTE. That'll get you going. But if you're ever experiencing technical difficulties with the phone, audio quality issues, maybe it sounds like the other person's talking through a tunnel or very robotic, maybe they can't hear you, you can hear them. If you're ever experiencing call drops, just any kinds of technical issues, audio call quality issues, that essentially means your phone is having trouble connecting to your internet. Doesn't mean the internet is bad, doesn't mean the internet is down. Your computers could be working fine, just means the phone itself is having trouble connecting. So again, the reason I'm mentioning all this here is because this X key is actually going to be how you reboot your phone if you're ever encountering any of those issues. So if there's any users that, ever encounter some call quality issues, or maybe somebody said they transferred a call to you, but you never got that call, call drops, anything like that, your first thing you're going to want to do is reboot your phone by holding down this X key. You hold that down for a few seconds, it's going to say, would you like to reboot? Just click OK. And in about 10 minutes, your phone is going to start back up again. It's not going to delete anything off the phone. You're still going to have your call logs. You're still going to have your speed dials, your contacts, your messages, your voicemails. Everything is going to stay on the phone. What it's really going to do is allow it to reconnect to your internet, hopefully with a much more stable connection. A lot of the time, there's outages that happen overnight, like 3 a.m., 2 a.m. And as soon as you turn on your computers, they boot back up again. They can reconnect, but the phones might need that boot up as well. So just something to keep in mind if you're ever encountering issues like that. Hold down this X key here to reboot, and then see if your phone's working better after that reboot process. If not, that's when it would be best to either reach out to us here at Masters. We can help you out, troubleshoot, or you can reach out to Verizon, as they can also help troubleshoot these phones as well. All right, so that's really the last item I wanted to leave you off on, just that reboot in case you're ever encountering any issues. But that does cover everything that we have here for the training. So we cover the idle settings, how to save those speed dials and some of these options here. We cover the on-call settings, conference calls and transferred calls. And then we also went into some miscellaneous things here, like how to set up that voicemail, some of these buttons, and some menu options. For now, did you guys have any questions for me, whether it's in regards to the phones or just the OneTalk system in general, before I let you go? And again, you can either, into the mic here, you can pop them into the chat. I can read them off of here as well. But just one last call here if we have any questions.
Hi, Nathan. This is Tan.
Yeah.
On your conference call, how many people can you have on a conference call?
Yes, that's going to be 6 people total. Yeah, and that's including yourself. So 6 people including yourself before it caps out.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Oh, good. Can you, when you're setting up that conference call, can you have the same, can you make a list of like the same, say 5 people? So it's a set, is there a way to do that?
You won't be able to do that with the conference feature. As far as that button goes, it's kind of just going to have to be that manual. You give them a call, click conference, give them a call, click conference. There's better ways to kind of make it a little bit more efficient. If you want to save them as like speed dials or save them in your directory, it might make it a little easier to kind of reach those phones.
Gotcha.
Or you can maybe make like a conference group in the directory, put those people in there, and then kind of go one by one from there.
Okay. That's a good idea. All right.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions here in regards to some of these features? All right, perfect. All right, so just know that here at Masters Telecom, we are essentially a partnered company with Verizon. So we're going to provide full-on support for your phone system in the future. If you guys have any questions down the line, or if you just want to make some changes to your system, maybe change your extension or change some names around, just reach out to us, let us know via email or phone call, and we'll always hop into the system and help out. All right, so I'll leave you guys off with that. I'll stop that recording. Again, you're going to see a follow-up email. It's probably going to be sent over to the technology supervisor and then distributed to you guys over the day. So just look out for that. It's going to have a simulator, download for this recording, and some other useful links. So thank you guys so much for your time here today, and feel free to reach out if there's anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.